Previously, he was ambushed by an ape while heading to the academy, but another beastmaster intervened. He noticed that the ape wasn't alone, as two more appeared on the ground. Acting quickly, he unleashed the Black Fang attack and saved her. Afterward, he noticed that her beast seemed down, so he offered advice. She was so grateful for his help that she expressed a desire to become his sister. However, his actual sister, watching from a distance, was not pleased with what she witnessed. Now to this week's chapter. She smiled as she stepped between them, trying to hide her anger toward the other girl. She apologized, saying it was nice of her to say that, but he wasn't just anyone's little brother. Meanwhile, he looked confused about what she was doing. She approached him and grabbed his arm, smiling as she claimed that he was her younger brother and didn't need anybody else except her. Meanwhile, he questioned why he was in this circumstance, but Qin Yanren knew what the girl meant, and she didn't want to share him. Annoyed that he already had a female alongside him, she resolved to check if she could be his sister as well. She grabbed him and clutched his arm, smiling, as she questioned if she was the only sister he really needed. He was nervous and didn't like where this was going. She grabbed him back, trying her best not to show her frustration. But Qin Yanren screamed at her, declaring that he was also her little brother from now on. He stayed silent, knowing this was going to be a pain for him. The two began to argue, one wearing a furious expression as she insisted he was her little brother. The other, smiling but clearly seething inside, claimed she needed him and that she was his little sister. He found himself in the middle, getting pulled from each side, and thought they needed to stop before they pulled him apart. After a while, he reached the central plaza of Azure Dragon Academy. New students filled the area, chatting and looking around with excitement. As they settled down, a voice called out from the front, capturing their attention. Everyone turned to listen, curious about what awaited them at the academy. The Dean of Azure Dragon Academy, Yin Kang, smiled warmly as he welcomed the new students. As he spoke, the Vice Principal, Wang Duxiang, stood beside him, ready to support him if needed. The Dean continued to speak, looking over the group of new students. He spotted the main protagonist and noted that this was the one with impressive spirit power who had caught the attention of several teachers during the entrance test. He then asked everyone to be patient as they waited for the school principal to arrive. Standing there, he began to recall that after saying goodbye to Qin, his sister hadn't been happy with him for some reason. She kept ignoring him until he finally enrolled, and he couldn't help but think about how he had managed to get into the academy he wanted. But suddenly, a loud roar filled the area, causing everyone to stop and look up. A mighty lion roared from above, its powerful voice echoing through the air and capturing the attention of all the new students. One student smiled with joy at the sight of the purple-flamed lion, thrilled to see such an incredible creature. Another student called out, excitedly saying it was Director Su's lion. As the purple lion flew above the crowd, its flames shimmering in the sunlight, all the new students were amazed by its power and grace. They watched in awe, captivated by the director's beast as it soared through the air, leaving them in wonder. Finally, the director arrived at the front, and the lion let out a mighty roar that sent shockwaves through the area. As it began to land on the stage, the ground trembled slightly beneath its powerful presence, drawing the attention of all the new students. She then dismounted from her lion and stood confidently on the stage. The dean turned to her, commenting that it would be great if the director could say a few words to the new students of the academy. She looked calm and collected, ready for the new students, but he was in shock, unable to believe that she was the woman who had fought the Shadow Demon Dragon before. He hadn't expected her to be the director of the academy. Reflecting on the battle he had witnessed, he realized just how powerful she truly was. She grabbed the mic and congratulated the new students, her voice warm and encouraging. However, she quickly reminded them of one important thing they needed to be aware of. Her aura shifted to a serious tone, as she stated that it didn't matter if you came from a powerful family or from humble beginnings. As she lifted her head, she looked at the new students with a serious expression and stated that at Azure Dragon Academy, they would all follow her rules. She emphasized that they must obey, especially rule number 8, which she had put in place for everyone's benefit. All the students focused on her, wondering what was so special about rule number 8. One student turned to another and asked if they had heard anything about it, feeling a mix of curiosity and nervousness. Just then, the director heard the students questioning what rule number 8 was. She waved her left arm and explained that rule number 8 stated that if there were conflicts between students, no matter who was right or wrong, they must resolve it through a duel in the ring. She emphasized that the loser would have to apologize to the winner. He began to think, realizing there was more to rule number 8 than what she was explaining. Considering his own situation, he understood that while the rules seemed strict, it was actually a way to prevent powerful families from abusing their influence and bullying others. For students like himself from humble beginnings, it offered a chance to seek justice through their own strength. 2 hours passed, and the students had been assigned to their classrooms when suddenly, a voice screamed out about something. The commotion drew everyone's attention, and curiosity filled the air as they wondered what was happening. It was a student who looked visibly upset, pointing his finger at him. He questioned if he was Zixingyu, stating that they were in the same class. The student continued, declaring that he was the one whose spirit power almost rivaled that of the famous senior Yi Ningshuang. However, Zixingyu completely ignored him, his attention shifting to the entrance examiner, who was now his new teacher. Chen looked at the student and gritted his teeth, telling everyone to sit down because class was about to start. He closed his eyes for a moment, and the other students quickly grabbed their seats, eager to avoid getting into trouble. As Chen began the class, he stood up to write on the board. Just then, the student who had been screaming at him earlier leaned over and whispered that he was now his older brother and that he would follow him from now on. Chen looked over at him, confused by what he had just said, but Chen could hear them talking and reminded them that if they wanted to chat, they could leave his class and not come back. His tone was firm, making it clear that he wouldn't tolerate any distractions. He then turned around and introduced himself as homeroom teacher Chen Qinian. He stated that they would learn something valuable during their time at Azure Dragon Academy. He instructed the students to open their Beast Companion Guild books and to look at the first chapter, where they would begin with the theory of Beast Companions. He stated that the strength of a Beast Companion is mainly determined by 2 factors, and explained that the first is the companion's evolutionary stage. Currently known evolutionary stages, from lowest to highest, include the initial form, which appears as a small beast. Next is the mature form, where the beast is slightly larger. Then comes the complete form, followed by the transcendent form. Finally, there is the Beast King form, representing the highest level of evolution and power. He then moved on to the second factor, stating that it is the beast's bloodline quality. He explained that they have documented various bloodlines, ranging from poor to high quality. He emphasized that higher quality bloodlines naturally possess the ability to suppress those from lower bloodline beasts, giving them an inherent advantage in strength and abilities. He explained further that the attributes of beast companions can create an attribute suppression effect. He stated that, for example, the common 5-element attributes metal, wood, water, fire, and earth follow a cycle of mutual suppression: wood over earth, earth over water, water over fire, fire over metal, and metal over wood. He also noted that beyond these 5 basic attributes, there are other variants, such as sand and lightning, mentioning that he wouldn't list them all one by one. As the lesson continued, time passed, and it was now afternoon. He was happily sleeping at his desk, using his arms as a pillow, completely unaware that he was snoring. The quiet classroom was filled with the soft sound of his snores, contrasting with the ongoing lesson. Chen was furious at how a student dared to sleep during his class while he was teaching. In a fit of annoyance, he threw a piece of chalk at the student's head, waking him up. Chen then shouted for him to stand up immediately, his frustration evident. He stood up, trying his best to shake off the sleepiness, but he was still half asleep. Chen, visibly angry, screamed at him, questioning if he had the nerve to sleep in his class, implying that if he did, he must know all the answers. He pressed him for the weakness of a sky demon lizard, his face contorted with frustration. He added that if the student got the answer wrong, he should pack his things and never return to his class. He thought about the sky demon lizard and remembered everything he had read about it. A smile appeared on his face as he looked down at his hand and recalled that the weak point was the venom sac under its abdomen. Chen asked him another question about where the ice condor crocodiles typically lived. He noted that they resided in the Frostfall Lake region of the Southern Dragon Kingdom and possibly in the cold pools beneath the Kunlun Glacier Falls. He began to think that he might have already gone through all the course material but needed to check his knowledge with a harder question. Looking at Zixingyu with a serious expression, he asked what he would do if he encountered a sky-rending tiger in the wild. Without wasting any time, he confidently stated that he would bite down on his ID as hard as he could and find a shady area to lie down. His classmates looked confused by his answer and questioned why he would do that. Chen, also puzzled, asked him to explain his reasoning behind such a decision. He thought about the sky-rending tiger and explained that it was a mutated beast king, formidable enough that only a level 6 beastmaster or higher stood a chance against it. He noted that as a beginner beastmaster, encountering a sky-rending tiger in the wild would mean he had little hope of victory. Defeat was almost certain at that point. His classmates now focused intently on him, listening as he continued. He explained that if he were to be defeated by the beast, he would place his ID in his mouth to make it easier for anyone who found him to identify him. He added that he would hide in a shady area to slow down the decay of his body, making it easier for his family to identify him for the officials. Chen suddenly looked down, gritting his teeth as he questioned how a student could know such information already. He thought he might be a genius. Then, he slammed his hand on the table and declared that he was giving him full marks for all the questions he had just asked, awarding him a perfect score of 100%. Chen asked him how he knew that information since it was from later chapters. He smiled while holding up a few books and replied that he already finished studying the course material. His classmates couldn't believe what he was saying. One asked how they were supposed to keep up with a study monster like him, while another wondered if he was some kind of prodigy. Chen instructed the class to self-study for a while, allowing them to focus on their own work. He then motioned for him to come outside. They arrived outside, and he apologized to Chen for falling asleep in class, promising it wouldn't happen again. However, Chen indicated that he had called him out not to discuss that, but for another reason entirely. Chen lifted his hand to his chin and remarked that he had mastered the entire semester's theory content in just a few hours during class today. Rubbing the back of his head, he acknowledged that it was all thanks to Chen's teachings that he had learned it so quickly. But Chen got irritated and pointed out that he should know when to use flattery and when not to. He continued, stating that since he had completed the theory section, it was time for him to move on to more advanced material. While he thought his teaching style was effective, he didn't believe it was good enough for one student to learn everything in just a few hours. He then pulled something from his pocket and handed it to him, explaining that it was a library pass for the Azure Dragon Academy. He couldn't believe his luck as he held it in his hands, his mind racing with all the fascinating things he could learn there. Chen added that it was a free pass to the library, allowing him to come and go as he pleased and borrow books at no cost. Chen placed his hand on his shoulder, looking pleased as he said it was time for him to move on. He understood that Chen was giving him approval to advance beyond the class and explore new things. A few minutes later, he found himself in the Azure Dragon Academy library, having already been self-studying for a few hours. Surrounded by countless books, he focused intently on all the fascinating information within them, eager to absorb as much as he could. Just then, a group of people entered, and one of them called out, claiming that the Azure Dragon Academy library belonged to him today. This person was Wang Yan, the son of the vice principal. His presence commanded attention, and the atmosphere in the library shifted as everyone turned to see what he would do next. Wang Yan ordered everyone to leave immediately, and several people hurried for the exit to avoid any trouble with the vice's son. Meanwhile, Li Xingyu ignored them, staying focused on his studies and determined to keep learning despite the disruption. Wang Yan then noticed a few girls in the distance. He looked at them and said that they could stay to keep him company and help him with his studies. The girls, however, looked scared at the sight of the vice's son and didn't know how to respond. The girls looked completely scared and terrified, pleading with Wang Yan to please let them go, their eyes welling up with tears as they seemed on the verge of crying. But then Zixingyu closed his book, unable to ignore what he was hearing and how the vice's son was behaving toward the girls. He felt compelled to stand up against Wang Yan's arrogance. He threw the book he was reading at Wang Yan's head, hitting him and catching his attention. He then told Wang Yan to shut up already. Wang Yan was confused about who would dare throw something at him. Just then, one of the guys he was with pointed to Zixingyu, saying he was the one who had disrespected him. Meanwhile, Li Xingyu casually walked toward them. Li Xingyu stood between the girls and Wang Yan, stating that Wang Yan had no shame for bullying girls. Wang Yan questioned who he thought he was and accused him of trying to be a hero just to impress the girls. But then one of the girls grabbed his jacket, looking really worried. When he turned back to her, she said that the person he was arguing with was the son of the vice principal of the academy and that they couldn't afford to mess with him. He turned back to Wang Yan with a smile and said that he was the son of the vice principal of the school. He mocked Wang Yan, suggesting that he understood why he was being so arrogant. Wang Yan just looked at him with an arrogant expression, stating that he was glad he understood who he was. Wang Yan became further arrogant, demanding that Li Xingyu bow down and apologize, pointing to his feet. However, Li Xingyu didn't care who he was. He firmly answered that Wang was dreaming as he kicked him in the center of his legs. Wang's face became pale as he was plainly upset by the kick on his family's jewels. He fell to the ground in pain, rolling from side to side. One of his friends, looking worried, asked if he was alright, while the other two simply watched, unsure of what to do. Wang Yan, still arrogant despite his predicament, struggled to lift his hand in the air and stated that Li Xingyu didn't know who he was messing with. His friends could only watch in fear. Still holding the area that was hurt, Wang clenched his fist and glared at Li Xingyu, warning that if he dared to mess with him, he could be sure he wouldn't leave the library alive. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and like. It really helps me out.